Realtors. You tell us all about what land and home prices across Clallam County. Anyway, Doc?
Wait.
Andrew has to do is magnificent. Okay, got it.
I'm sorry, Andrew. Kind of the same, but we had it. So what I'll add, because it's going to be redundant just to go on, it is a beautiful day, but because of how home ownership is going on, and we're going to hear about that. But more importantly, what John left out is Doc is an incredible, civically minded person. If you know all the things that he's done, the great sand sculptures, how he got that national recognition, past president of Rotary, in too many numerous things to list. He's not just works here and lives here and loves the place, he daily practices making us better. Once again, Doc Reiss.
That's going to be something to live up to. I do have to ask you to forgive me a bit. Last night when I was putting this all together, my computer decided that it didn't want to update the way that it should, so I've got a stack of paper, but I think I can do this. Years ago, actually centuries ago, there was a Roman emperor who had a hobby of sacrificing slaves to the lions. And he would gather in all his friends, book the Colosseum, bring in all the food, pack the place, and then they'd have fun just sitting down watching these lions devour the slaves. He did this one day, and they dispatched a couple of slaves, and the next slave came out, the lion came running up to him, stopped, turned around and left. The emperor had never seen this before. He was puzzled. He said, "Send it to the lion." Same thing happened. The lion came charging out, looked at the guy, turned around and left. The emperor's getting furious. Sends in another 2 lions, one after the other, and each one has the same result. Finally, he calls the slave up to him and he said, "Look, you're upsetting me. You're disturbing the crowd. I don't know what you're doing. I've never seen this before. Okay, but you tell me what you're doing and I'll let you go free." The slave said, "Well, it's not that difficult." Lion comes out, paws up, claws out, gets ready to eat me, and I said, "Well, go ahead if you want, but you know you have to make a speech after dinner." As you might know or be able to gather, I don't have a problem with that. A bit of trivia for you, by the way. Early European builders often painted murals with stories on them, on every level of a home that they would create. And that is how we got the phrase of a 1-story home, a 2-story home, etc. Because of the murals on each level. That's also why we refer to commercial buildings and hotels as having floors instead of stories. So, just a bit of trivia. But I have a great job. I get to sell homes. That's the thing where you put 1 down payment and 359 darn payments into it. A man's home is his castle. At least that's how we feel about it at tax time. But the problem with owning a home is that no matter where you sit, you're looking at something you should be doing. Homes are a lot of work. They're a lot of investment. Well, what is a home? A home is a roof to keep out the rain, 4 walls to keep out the wind, floors to keep out the cold. But a home is even more than that. It's the laugh of a baby, the song of a mother, the strength of a father, warmth of living hearts, light from happy eyes, kindness, loyalty, comradeship. Home is the first school and the first church for young ones. It's where they learn what is right, what is good, and what is kind, and where they go for comfort when they're hurt or sick. Where joy is shared, sorrow is eased, where fathers and mothers are respected and loved, where children are wanted, where the simplest food is good enough for kings because it's earned, where money is not so important as loving kindness, where even the tea kettle sings from happiness. That is home. God bless it. And that's what I do, kind of. But my job is more than selling homes. If you think about it in a different light, I don't sell homes or land or condos or even commercial buildings. What I do is help people get to the next part of their life, the next part of their dream. And real estate happens to be the key for them to accomplish that. So people who come to me are either moving in, moving up, moving on or moving out. And real estate is how they're going to do that. It's a key indicator of the community's health as well. And I'm happy to report that our community and our area is doing well. Last year, 2015, we sold 14% more homes than we did in 2014. The average home sold for slightly more than $203,000. That's up 7% from the year before, from 2014. Years ago, it's not scientific, but it's pretty well figured out if you just look at the numbers and kind of think about things. The Seattle Times did an unscientific survey and realized that every time someone buys a home, within 6 months, they spend an average of $17,000 in the community. And if you think about it, that's what we do. We buy a house, get a new TV, buy a sectional sofa, get landscaping done, paint the place, new roof, get a garage, fix the doors, put in new windows. All that stuff adds up. And it's all money coming into the community. Following that line, at $17,000 a house, last year real estate sales generated $8,891,000 going into the local community, above and beyond the cost of the homes or condos or land or whatever. This year, we're starting off a little slower than we did last year, but it's also the beginning of the year when times are supposed to be a little bit on the slow side. Last year, we sold 32 homes by this time, and they had an average price of $188,000. This year, we've only sold 27. But the average price has been $229,500. One of the reasons for the increase in price is that we're down in inventory. We have been down in inventory for over a year. Matter of fact, at one point in this month, we had a lower inventory than we've had since 2006. There aren't a lot of homes out there for sale right now. That's making it a seller's market because prices are going up. Demand is there, the product isn't. One of the things that is being done locally is we're looking for ways to find, I call it product, you would call it homes, other people call it properties. There are a bunch out there that aren't quite what people are looking for. And several years ago, I had a client who moved into the area. He ran into the exact same problem. He would see a house and it was almost what they wanted, but not quite. He's now working with First Fed, and First Fed has come up with a brand new program. They're calling it the mini rehab. If you bring out an appraiser and you find a house that's, say, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, it's not quite as big as you need. It's a 1,300 square foot house, you need at least 1,600 square foot. You want to add on another bedroom or add on a den. If the appraiser comes out and says this house with that addition would be worth, say, $50,000 more, and it will cost you $38,000 to do the addition, First Fed will roll that cost into the 30-year mortgage. No 203K needed. No additional fees, no jack up on the interest rates with a fee to take it back into the 30. Fannie Mae has just come out with a program that also is going to let people do things like that with a 3% down loan or a 3.5% down loan. We have other lenders in town that will do mini rehab loans for up to $35,000. We're trying to get this information out to the public so that they realize it doesn't have to be the perfect home to be the home that's perfect for you. And that's what we're going to try to do, is get more of that information out there so that people can find homes that right now are sitting on the market because they're not quite what fits. So that's one of our goals this year, is to educate people. We're going to be at the expo talking about this along with lenders and along with the building association, because that's one of the ways that we can work to grow the community even though we don't have the homes right now. As we get further into the year, more homes will come on. A lot of people pull their homes off in the wintertime. They don't want people tromping through and disturbing the turkey and the tree and things like that. It's understandable. Other people realize that people look for homes all year long. So we do have buyers, we do have sellers, we do have activity. And that's going to increase as we get further into the year, because our big season is May through August. Most people want to be moving out of the home after the kids are out of school, and they want to be in the home before school starts. So that's where the thrust of our business is. Now here's the interesting part of all of that, and it's something that I wanted to let you folks know, and that is that We couldn't do our job if it wasn't for you. You're a lot of the reasons that people think of Port Angeles as being the great place that it is, and a wonderful town to work and raise a family. Businesses are more than just retail and services. Businesses are the character of a town. You're a lot of the reasons that people come here. You're a lot of the reasons that people stay here. Think about that this morning. When you go back to your office and your businesses and you turn on the lights, turn on the sign, open the door, you're the reason that people want to be here. They like what you do. They appreciate what you do. You are needed. And you are more than one reason why people want to be in Port Angeles. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be here. Things are getting better. A lot of that's due to you. So when you do what you do, people realize that one of the best parts of finding a good real estate deal is the neighbors that go along with the house. And that's what we have. We have wonderful neighbors. We have a great community. And that all hinges on the business community. So thank you for letting me be here and address you this morning. That's it. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer. Yes, sir.
If you added that to a normal REO and foreclosure amount, what would the average selling price of it? I hear that because the percentage of those sales, total sales has declined, thankfully, that it does affect the average selling price.
REOs are interesting, and we actually have somebody here in the audience who knows far more about them than I do. But the situation with REOs is if you took 30 repossessed homes that have gone through the foreclosure process and are now on the market as repossessed houses, being sold by some bank or some service facility, if you drop that into Seattle, nobody would notice. The Seattle market is 26,000 agents. We normally run about 350 to 400 homes on the market at any time during the peak of the season. Throw in 30 repossessed homes, you just took up about 8 to 10% of the market. So when those hit, even though appraisers look at things with an arm's length transaction, and they try not to take the discounted price of the REO, and some of them aren't really that discounted considering what you're getting, that does drive prices down because people are looking for the low-hanging fruit first. Right now, with us not having the inventory, last year we went up 7%, the year before we went up 6%, the year before that we were up 4%. So as the REOs have declined, prices have come up. So you're right about that. Statistically, where would we be specifically if we didn't have them? You just asked me something I hadn't even considered, so I don't know. Hopefully that gives you some of an answer. Is there anyone? Yes?
Can you also comment on what you're seeing in development of prices of raw land? I understand from Nathan's presentation the other day, inside the city limit, there aren't a whole lot of lots that are still available to be developed and built on further construction. So as people are not finding necessarily what they want, they may have to build outside the city limits. Is there a lot of overhang from developers that got sort of stuck without being completed 2006, 2007, or how are you seeing the land situation developing in the area?
Well, one of the things that happens when you have a low inventory, like what we've been having, in essence almost record levels, if people can't find what they're looking for, especially if they're already in a rental and they're secure there, they're just looking, they will go out and buy land in order to build a home. Contractors, builders who understand the market will go ahead and buy land and start building spec homes or buy land for developing further on. Last year in Port Angeles we had 64 home sales with an average price of $67,004. And this year, I'm sorry, that was 2014. This 2015 we had 72 sales, and that was at an average of $71,815. So we're selling more land because we don't have the houses to go with them. And it's kind of an inverse situation. If you have a lot of houses, you have very little land sales because people can buy what they want. If you don't have the homes, then people start buying the land, start doing the development, and that also stimulates the economy. So right now, yes, we are seeing better land sales than we have for quite a while. We have had 7 so far this year, just in the month of January. So we're doing pretty good with that kind of stuff.
Is there a big overhang, like there was in some areas of the country after 2009, of developments that they put aside and then come back on the market as the conditions improve to allow maybe somebody new, if the old owner went bankrupt, to get them started again? Then you have lots of lots suddenly coming on, or not really in this area?
Depends on what you call this area. There's more of that going on in Squim, because there was far more land speculation in Squim for development than what we've had. But we do have builders who are buying up properties and then turning them into spec homes. How you would calculate that out to see specifically where we are in the process, I haven't considered, sorry. But we're kind of a microcosm. You have everything here that you have everywhere else. You just have it usually a little later and a little less. So again, with us, we don't have a lot of land right now, but we also have people who are sitting on land. And they realize that as it starts moving, then they're going to start feeding more into the market because the prices are going up and they can get more of the land. So they're just strategically holding back, I think. Yes, Edna?
So, going back to the first bed program
Yeah.
and the other programs out there, how are you going to write that earnest money? Is that inclusive of the addition?
Yes.
And so the seller then will pay a commission on the improvement?
Shouldn't be, no. Because it's only on, it's not on the, you don't get a commission on the loan. You get a commission on the sale.
But the earnest money will be inclusive of the loan?
Well, no. The way that it works, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just trying to visualize how to express this.
I knew you'd love my question.
Say that I find a house for $150,000. And for $30,000 I can add on another bedroom. And so I go to First Fed and I show them that the house is worth $200. If I add on the other bedroom, they say, okay, we're going to give you the loan for $180. The sale price is only for $150. The earnest money applies to the sales price. Above and beyond that, it's in the financial people's.
So as you're tracking numbers today, then in a year, that increased value in our local economy won't show?
It will show it will show later on when that comes back into being, or if it turns into a rental house. One of the things, we don't have a whole lot of land. Only about 7% of this area has ever been developed. And one of the things that the city looks at on a constant basis, and did for a long time when I was on the Planning Commission, was how do we do infill? How do we allow more people into the space that we have without changing the character of the town? You know, a lot of the areas here could be developed into slightly more occupancy. You know, people could put up a garage with an apartment above it as an ADU. Or they could convert another space within the home to have a small apartment. So those are the kind of things that infill can accomplish. Substandard lots, things like that, the city doesn't really want to get into doing those kind of things. But if there is a variation that's possible that will allow infill, the Planning Commission and the city will look at it. Yes, sir.
You find that the families moving to the area consider the quality of schools as part of the thing that you heard what area they moved to?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. I mean,
how do our schools stack up?
It kind of depends on who you're talking to. From everything that I have seen and from the folks that I know at the school board, we have a very good system here. Is it perfect? No. Do we need more infrastructure and more modernization? Yes. Do we have schools that are attractive to people? At this time, yes. That's what I'm hearing from folks who come here. We talk to people who have considered Squim, have considered Port Townsend, have considered us, and they like these schools. We do some amazing things in these schools. That's one of the things that I really love about this community. We have a jazz program in the middle school system that is just incredible. You know, we have computer system classes. We have all sorts of development. And one of the things that I've always enjoyed about Port Angeles is that I was reminded years ago that not everybody here is going to want to go to college. So we put a great deal of emphasis into those people that want to go into services. Because we will always need services, and we need to encourage people to go into that. I mean, we don't have an airline here because they don't have pilots. But at the same time, no computer is ever going to plumb a house, you know, or wire an apartment building. It needs people with the technical skills to do that, and we need to support those kids also, and that's one of the things that we do with our system, which is one of the things that I really like about this community. I was told by the school board years ago, we design our agendas and curricula so that if someone wants to be in service, they're given just as much support as somebody who wants to go into college. And I think that that's going to be great. But yes, schools are a very important part of why people move to a community or don't. Yes?
So two related questions. One, can you do a better job characterizing who the people are who are wanting to purchase here? Are they retirees? Are they families who moved here? Are they people who live here who are upgrading? And then the second question is, if you could do a little better job explaining more specifically what the mismatch is, what they're looking for versus what's available.
Well, that's an interesting way of asking. There are some things that we don't really track. I mean, I can give you my personal experience on it, but I'm only dealing with a certain number of buyers. You know, and while I may find something that's similar to what Dick finds in his business, we don't really sit down and compare notes. What we do as real estate professionals is if we can't find something that someone's looking for specifically. For example, I'll get an email that says, I have a family coming in from out of the area. They're looking for a 4-bedroom, 3-bath home on acreage on a dead-end street with a water view. People come in, yeah, and they only want to pay $150,000. Yeah. People come in. There was an old phrase years ago, and I'm glad I don't hear it anymore. But cynical real estate agents used to say that buyers are liars, and they're not. They don't know what they're looking at because they haven't seen it. Real estate. The good thing about real estate is that no two pieces of property are alike. The bad thing about real estate is that no two pieces of property are alike. So you don't find typically the perfect house. You find a house that comes close to what you want. And you also, while you're shopping, you have a tendency, a lot of people do, of changing their preferences. I had a couple come in from Utah years ago. They wanted a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,500 square foot house with a 3-car attached garage and a gourmet kitchen. They ended up buying a 968 square foot cabin on 5 acres with a gorgeous view of Victoria and a 5x6 kitchen. They saw it, they fell in love with it, that's what they got. People come in with an idea as to what they're looking for, and then they find a home that comes as close to that or something that they can adapt. And where they come from, I had a client look at me earlier this year and she said, I want you to advertise to the areas where people are moving from. Boy, do I wish I could do that. You don't know where people are coming from, you don't know why. I've had people who came here and went fishing, fell in love with the place, and moved here. I mean, I came here to get a job at a radio station. 7 weeks later, it went dark. I was out of work for 4 months, but I loved the town so much that I found ways to stay here. Bought a house, still live in the same house about 20 years later. And I've lived here longer than I lived anywhere in my life, and I'm extremely happy. I have no plans to move. You know, Port Angeles is the kind of town that if you find it and you like it, you love it. And so people just driving through, discover it. People look it up online, they find us an outdoor magazine. You know, I wish I could tell you exactly how I could define it down further for you, but unfortunately, I only have one small section of the pie. We'd have to really sit down and ask all the realtors. And I don't know that we could get all the realtors to sit down.
But following up on that, even anecdotally, and Dick, please chime in, do you think that there's a majority from the county or from the peninsula or from the state? Do you have an anecdotal kind of feeling on, is the majority very local population or coming in? And Dick, please, after.
Looking at it that way, Andrew, I would say that probably the majority of it would be local and local area.
Peninsula, Puget Sound.
Yeah. I think probably, what do you think, Dick? But I think about 40% probably is new folks, and about 60 would be local, quote, unquote, area. What do you think?
I wouldn't disagree with that. We have, we have a lot of people that seek retirement, and so we got a lot of retirees particularly going to swim, but in PA as well. While we are still in the process of exporting most of our jobs and our kids, so we have an influx coming in that don't need jobs.
Yeah. And also another thing to bear in mind is that a lot of people who come in, you know, it was made reference earlier that we have a great internet community here. A lot of people get a hold of me. About 40% of my business comes from out of the market every year. And one of the questions I get asked a lot is, what's your internet connection like? You guys are out there in the middle of nowhere. If I come in, and a lot of people are doing this, they're coming in and bringing their business with them. There was one guy who moved into town about 3 years ago. He works in Los Angeles. He doesn't work there anymore. He's a software engineer for music. And he works right up off of Mount Angeles. Sits in his house, deals with Hollywood every day through the computer. He'd rather be here than have the congestion. And he's just one happy clown. So.
And I've got a couple of people too that have home offices here that do medical stuff, and they just do it from their computer. So they have the advantage of living in a nice place, but they're still, their heads are in the city, as it were.
Doc, let me share my experience. I'm a real estate exchange specialist, and so over half of my clients are coming in from out of state. They're virtually retired. They move here, they buy a home from one of the local realtors. Then if they stay long enough to like it, then they sell rental property back in those other states. And so then we get the second and third tier sales. So they bring those dollars in, and then they're looking for investment property. And so that's the second wave of activity that I see.
Yeah.
But fomented initially by the retiree.
Yes.
Invest.
The gentleman behind you there.
I was just going to say the schools don't teach construction trades on the
Really? I'm sorry to hear that.
That's economy.
Yeah. Is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
First, congratulations on 14% year over year. But let me ask a question. Is that Port Angeles? Is that Peninsula?
That's Port Angeles.
That's Port Angeles.
Right. I can pull information on the entire peninsula, but when we consider Port Angeles, we go from McDonald Creek west.
Okay.
So it's primarily, with our MLS system, there are two multiple listing services on the peninsula. One is the Northwest, which is Seattle, and that's pretty much Marysville to Olympia. Massive amount of agents. We tap into that. About 40 to 50% of the real estate companies in town belong to both. Locally, we have what's known as the OLS, which is the Olympic Listing Service. That's a combined effort between SWIM and Port Angeles real estate offices. We do work in Forks, just like we do work in Clallam Bay, Nia Bay, and things like that. Forks is on the northwest. So what goes on for Forks, if it's not our listings in the OLS, we have to go to the other to find that information. But when we say Port Angeles, if you're actually out in Beaver, that's considered Port Angeles as far as the post office is concerned. And as far as our market's concerned, it's pretty much McDonald Creek west. So anything from McDonald Creek east is SWIM, and we stop at Diamond Point.
May I ask if you have any statistics on commercial and industrial property, either vacant or underutilized?
Woo boy! There's a bunch of that. We are trying to do, I was talking, interestingly enough, with my designated broker yesterday, and over the last couple of years, there hasn't been a real strong demand for commercial. Some of it is selling. One of the problems of pricing out commercial right now and trying to sell commercial is there hasn't been a whole lot of it. So you have to sometimes go back 2 years or 3 years in order to find a decent comp and try to figure it out. At the same time, right now I've got 3 different people that are looking for commercial properties. So we're out trying to find, and in a way, finding a commercial property for your business is a lot like trying to find a home. This is what I want. What have you got that we can take and possibly renovate, fix up, you know, and people modify their plans by the buildings that are available. So some of the real estate that goes on in commercial happens so quickly, people go around and go, huh? You know, there was a business downtown that sold for $90,000, full building. It didn't go on the market. It, boom, you know, it was a private deal. Why they set that price so low, I don't know. You really can't use that as a comp. And there's other businesses in town where the building is sitting empty and the owner doesn't want to do anything with it for one reason or another. But we're trying to move commercial. We're trying to stimulate ideas and bring in more people and also stimulate the entrepreneurial side of folks when they take a look at the town. So one of the things that I'm very happy about Mark is that he is known for being able to recruit. And that's one of the things that we need is the chamber actively out there pursuing bringing businesses in. Connie's platform when she got elected was the fact that the port should be doing things to bring businesses into the community to stimulate the growth. We've got the carbon recycling center that's getting ready to come on board. That's going to be a great deal because we're the only ones who are doing it. So I do have positive thoughts about where commercial is going to go in. And I think that business is going to uptick. And when you get businesses being successful, it's a big circle. That brings in more, which brings in more, which brings in more. And that stimulates our economy. That's kind of...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm also an example of someone whose clients are in this time right now in Los Angeles, collaborating daily, nightly, around the clock. It happens.
Yeah.
It's a piece of the puzzle. We need all of the businesses and technology to help.
Yeah. Laurel Black is a friend of mine, and one of the things that gets her is that she's a nationally award-winning designer. Yep. She's based right up here on Patterson Road. She'll get a client who will call her from somewhere in Seattle or something and say, well, if you're so good, why are you in Port Angeles?
Because I'm so good.
You know, as my accountant said, you know, I could live in Seattle and make 3 times as much. And it would cost me 3 times as much. And I'd have to put up with the traffic, and I'd have to put up with the crime, and I'd have to put up with the pollution. Thank you, I'd rather be here. You know, so people are starting to recognize that we've got Levex, we've got Tom Dan, we've got Laurel Blacks, we've got other folks that are doing amazing work, and they happen to live in a community they love. And the more that gets out, the more people know about things like that, and like you, we're going to see more of those folks come in. At least that's my dream and my hope. Is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
Is any market for retirement cottages, smaller units for single or a couple?
One of the things that came up several years ago for metropolitan areas, and metropolitan areas, their trends don't necessarily translate to here. And I'm not sure exactly why, but a while back they came up with this idea of creating, in essence, villages. Small retirement homes that also had a designated doctor and designated nurses who would come in once every week or once every 2 weeks, always on call kind of thing. Those two proved to be pretty popular in some areas. We had a developer years ago who decided that he was going to try to recreate that kind of an environment and a development. Problem that you have in a small community is that people talk. And when this guy developed these condos, nice looking condos, but word went around town, you know, he's buying those cabinets from Home Depot. They're not coming to the cabinet shops here. Those are out of a box, you know. And did you know that he's doing this and this, and this one over here isn't really the kind of trim that you want. It'd be MDF, you know, really bangs up easy. And then he came out and wanted, what was it? I think $387 a square foot. And people went, no, thank you, wrong. It went into foreclosure after several years. So, do we have anything like that in the plans? Not that I know of. Could we do something like that? Possibly. I don't know what the market demand is. We have to take a look. The last time it was tried, it wasn't tried well.
Okay, Doc, I
Yes,
have
Ed.
one more unfair question.
Okay.
On television, the big driver in some of the shows is the TV.
Mm-hmm.
Are we doing anything, Square 40 and just with the planning commissions and everybody, to make those something that you could do?
That's actually something that I was looking into a while back. I approached the developer and wanted to know if we could start talking about that kind of an opportunity. Never heard back. There are some that are available in Port Townsend, you know. I know some people who are interested in it. When you read the magazines or you see things on TV, they're talking about the fact that people are looking for this type of a home. Perhaps. My son's got a couple of friends who are very into that idea. But by and large, no. Most people are looking, most of the people that I deal with are typically looking for about a 12 to 1,800 square foot house. And I mean, mini homes are great if you're single, or it's you and the dog, you know, or it's just a couple. But it's a way of getting into the real estate market. I don't know that we would necessarily find any of them here as attractive. I don't know. I really can't see them. If you were looking at the development like up on the top of Laurel, that big one that went in up there, that's sitting pretty much empty. Those have some smaller lots within that development where you could put a mini house and it wouldn't feel like you were having a stick in the middle of an acre, you know, because they're smaller lots. They're 4,000, 5,000 square foot lots up there. But in a normal city, 7,000, 9,000 square foot lot, I think it would look a little odd just to have a little mini house. Maybe that's what's stopping people from doing it. I don't know.
And following up on that, how about you know, mothers-in-laws, apartments, etc., that you alluded to? Is the city looking at different ordinance changes to allow those into two dwellings on one parcel?
I don't think so. Now, I haven't been on the planning commission for a few years, but when I was there, in the state of Washington, it is illegal to resell water. That's one of the things that's in the RCW. So if I have a house and it's got a guest quarters in the basement and I rent it out to you and you're using water that I'm paying for, I am, according to the state, reselling the water. That's illegal. For me to turn that into an apartment or an accessory dwelling unit, it has to have its own power, its own water, 2 parking spaces off street, and its own address in big 6-inch letters. We had a guy come to the planning commission. He said, I've got a house that was built in '67. I've got about a 700 square foot space downstairs with its own private entrance. It's got a little kitchenette right now. It's been the family room, kind of social area. We could make it into an apartment. But if I have to read these regulations, I'm going to have to peel every single wall, replumb, rewire the whole house, and it's going to cost me more to do that than it would to build a whole new house. So I need a variance. Planning commission said, got it. No biggie. So that was it. He turned it into an apartment. He's had a guy living there now for several years, gentleman who's not retiring but could, you know, who's just quiet and kind of stays there.
So situationally, the city is open to
the city's open to looking
present
at
your plan.
Yeah, the city's open to looking at anything, and most people don't have a problem with it. You know, unless it's something that's really off the wall, the city's very willing to work with people in order to find a way to do infill. So at least they always have been for every time that I've approached them.
One last question.
I think I talked them all out.
What's your latest project?
We have a mortgage expert over here.
Ms. Felina.
Do you have a specific question, or?
No, I think John was just asking if you had any comments.
Any comments at all?
Oh, no. Well, I think that one of the things that, as everyone knows, was a problem during the downturn was lack of availability of money. So how quickly we forget. Lending has loosened up quite a lot. There are loan programs for investors again. Not so much development yet, but access to credit has improved dramatically. So hopefully we can continue to make smart decisions about our financial future. And thank you, Doc, for all the great information.
Thank you.
It's 8:30. Thank you again, Doc. Very good. Next Tuesday is our open business discussion meeting. and reports from Harry Bell's Government Affairs Committee. And thanks again to our guests. We have Rich, Catherine, and of course Mark. Welcome aboard, Mark.
Yes.
Anyway.
Does Mark need an application?